In this lesson, we're going to learn how to smooth geometry using the TurboSmooth modifier. Alright, so in the last lesson we had created this air intake vent using the box modeling method, and you'll notice that because we have so little segments that we really don't get a smooth result. So a remedy to this is using the TurboSmooth modifier. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Let's go ahead and go to our modifier list, and we're going to scroll down and you'll see TurboSmooth. Go ahead and apply that, and you'll notice that it really smooths out this geometry and rounds it out, and that's not necessarily something that we want. But how do we get the shape back? It's lost a lot of volume. Well, I'm going to show you how we can do that. First thing that I want to do though is I want to go ahead and take the iterations up, and I want to make this pretty smooth here. So I might go up to 3, but whenever we take these iterations up, it has a lot of polygons to deal with, and it makes it very cluttered and hard to work with. So what I like to do is I like to turn on this isoline display, and that's much cleaner. Alright, so now that we have this, what do we do with it? How do we get this to harden back up? How do we get that volume back? Well, what we need to do is add more segments. Now you might be thinking, how does that even make sense? We had so many segments whenever we had isoline display off. How does adding more segments make any sense to that? Don't we need to move all these around? Well, the TurboSmooth uses an algorithm that reads all of these segments that are in the original object and smooths between them. So if you have more segments in your original object, it will create harder surfaces around closer segments. So let me show you what I mean by that. Let's go to TurboSmooth, and I'm going to hit, let's go to Editable Poly, and let's turn on that Show End Result. And then I'm also going to turn on that isoline display so that way we can see that there. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some segments around the edges that we want to be nice and hard. We want to bring that volume back. So to do this, let's go to Edge Mode, and we could do this a couple of different ways. One way would be to select the rings, okay, in this object, and you'll see that we have a cage that shows us the original geometry that we were working with. And if this is really hard to see, what you can do is you can change the color of this cage by going to your subdivision surface, and you can change that from orange to something like blue. And then you could also change the selection color to something like red. That might make things a little bit easier. Okay. Now I could select this edge, and I could select that entire ring and use Connect just like we did before. So let's try that. Let's hit Ring, very top, and then let's use Connect, the settings, and then let's go ahead and slide that down toward this front edge here. Now you'll see that it is changing something. It's making some of the geometry become a little bit sharper on some of these edges, but it's not rounding it out at the top. So what's happening? Well, we haven't actually placed the segments we need across the top to harden that up. So how do we do that? Well, let's go ahead and let's select one of these edges here, and I'm going to go ahead and hit Ring. Okay, and that's going to select all the way around. And then I'm going to use that Connect again, and you'll see here that I've got that negative amount that I had before, and it's gone ahead and hardened that up. It's squared it off. So on any edges that are really round and you want them to square off or become harder and contain or retain their volume, you want edges that cut across that curve. So let me show you what I mean here. I want this curve right here to be harder. I want the volume to be something like this. So I'm going to cut across that to harden that up. So if I use Connect, it cuts across that and hardens that up. Let's do the same thing here. Let's use a different method for creating some of this geometry instead of Ring and Connect. Another way to do this is to use your graphite modeling tools. So let's go ahead and expand those out and give those just a moment to open up and load. And inside of Editable Poly, while you're in Edge mode, you can go to Edit, and you have this Swift Loop tool. Now, Swift Loop allows us to hover over a segment or a section of edges, and we could cut a loop across those edges. So if we left click one time, it creates that cut there. Alright, very nice. Let's do the same thing right here. I want this to be nice and hard here. Now the closer the segments are together, the harder that crease is going to be. So I'm going to pull this up away from that crease just a little bit. Okay, so you can see how it hardens that up, starts to retain some of that value or volume, but still has a little bit of curve in there. I'm going to do the same thing underneath that. There we go. Now the bottom is a little bit too round. So what I want to do is I want to cut across that, and the closer I get to that segment, the harder that's going to be. Very nice. Okay, so we're looking really good up to this point. Now a couple of issues that I see are these edges right here. Those are very, very soft, so let's harden those up. I'm going to go ahead and cut right across here. Okay, and it's going to create a loop. Left click, and that, see how it hardens that up. Very, very nice. I'm going to do the same thing on the inside here. There we go. And we don't really have to worry about the back too much. That will actually work itself out here. I am going to create a cut right across the top though, and you'll see how that hardens that up even more. Very nice. So let's turn off edge mode. Let's take a look at what we have. Alright, so our vent is looking really smooth. We've got a nice hard edge to it. Really happy with the way that looks right now. And now what we're ready to do is we're ready to move on to the next portion, which is going to be our wings. So I'll see you then.